Hey, this is Elon. Welcome back to the Holistic Health Podcast. And today I'm joined by the amazing Emma. And Emma is the co-founder of Gourmet Fuel, the healthy meal delivery company, which she set up with her brother Rob in 2014. Emma is a registered nutritionist and has been working in the nutrition and health space for over 20 years, which has allowed her to see many different approaches to eating come and go. Gourmet Fuel creates the meals you want to cook, but don't have the time or the inclination. Emma, how are things with you today?
Good. Thank you, Elon. Thanks for having me.
No, I'm delighted to have you. I was really looking forward to having a chat about all things nutrition and gourmet fuel and learning more about your journey as an entrepreneur as well. So I think a lot of people are gonna, find this episode really interesting. So excited to get into it.
Thank you. It's my very first podcast.
Nice. Well, you're very welcome
Yeah,
to the
I've never done
podcast.
one or been on one. So yeah, this is great.
That's good stuff.
Stoked.
And yeah, just to get into it, I was really curious to find out what kind of inspired you to set up Gourmet Fuel.
Um, so I suppose the main thing, well, first of all, when it was actually Rob's idea, when Rob came to me and said, "And I see this ready-made healthy meals that you talk about nutrition a lot all the time," and I'm like, "Yeah, Rob, it's been my career for like 15 years at this point," and he's like, "You know how like." I think it would be a good idea if you could make the meals that you're suggesting that people make, but have it delivered to their home. And I was like, well, how would we do that? How would we get like, you know, salads and uh, lovely fresh pasta and things like that? How can we do that? That's made the way you would make it yourself, delivered to somebody a couple days later, and how's it going to taste good? I just couldn't get my head around that at all. He's like, there has to be a way to do it. There has to be a way. And I had lived in America for a good few years at this point. And I'd come back from living there, and I knew that there were services like that there. So I was like, well, I know that it does exist, but I just didn't know how it would kind of meet the quality and the nutrition integrity that I would have wanted out of something like that. And he was really gung ho about like figuring out how we could do this, and I went, okay. And at the same time, I had been working one to one with a lot of clients, um, and in the many years that I had been doing food plans for people and creating a new healthy eating regime for them, that I saw 9 times out of 10, when you start with great gusto, you start because you're like, mentally you're ready, you want to give it your all, you're really into it and really excited, and that's great. And then we come up with, a really good plan for you, and it hits all the things you like to eat and avoids the things you don't like to eat. And we come up with the shopping list and all that kind of stuff, and that's great. And people are go for it, and like 2 3 weeks in, it's all going really well. Fourth, fifth, sixth week in, some hiccup from life happens. You got to work late, your kid's sick, your husband had a DIY accident like mine did the other day, and you know, life gets in the way. And with the best will and the best of intentions, the last the thing that gets kicked to touch the quickest is the healthy eating plan, because it requires shopping, cooking, prepping, planning, all of the things that is actual, like, takes time and work and mental effort. And you just go, oh, look, I'll just order pizza in, or I'll just get Chinese food, or I'll just do whatever. Not that Chinese food's bad, I'm just saying it's just like it comes takes you away from the plan that you were on. You might miss your session in the gym, or you might miss your walk in the morning, or whatever. Anyway, life gets in the way. And usually the first thing to go is your plan, because it's hard. It's hard to do. So that compliance and that consistency of effort is difficult to do when life gets in the way. So basically, what I thought to do, if I could come up with a solution that, yes, I'm still giving the nutrition advice, and yes, I'm still creating the meal plan based on people's likes and dislikes and what their targets are or what their goals are, working back from what their goal would be and how would we achieve that, and consider all of those things like your job, your how does your day look, what's your home life like, all of these things that actually, without you knowing it, have an impact on how you eat and how you approach your food. But if we take the work out of it, as in like, okay, you don't actually have to do any of the shopping, the cooking, the prepping. All you have to do is tell me what you like to eat, or don't even have to talk to me. You can go through a system whereby, you just talk to the fuel wizard, which is what we've nicknamed our nutritionist on the Gourmet Fuel. And you all you have to do is make sure that you get your order in on time, and then your food is delivered to you on a Sunday or a Monday or Wednesday or Thursday or whatever day you choose. And all you have to do is pop it in the fridge, decide what you want to eat that day, or follow our plan. And it takes all of that grunt work out of the equation, the bit that gets kicked to touch when things happen. So it just allowed for greater compliance and greater consistency with someone's healthy eating. And as well as most people, that you're not going to see the benefits of something either overnight or even in the first 4 weeks. It takes 6 weeks, takes 8 weeks, takes 12 weeks, takes a year of consistently eating a certain way for you to see the impact, whether that's in a positive or a negative way. So you with that consistency of effort, those small little daily tasks that you do and those small little daily implementations that you do have the best yield in positive impacts down the line. So allowing people and supporting them with their nutrition and supporting them with their healthy eating in a way that actually fits in with their lifestyle was the goal ultimately for me. And we've been able to do that with Gourmet Fuel, and it's been a real privilege to be able to have helped people along the way with all sorts of various things, from weight loss, weight gain, PCOS, all the things that people can have, that can come to us for. But actually, people will always come to us for a health goal usually, but stay with us because of the convenience of it. And it's just a different way to shop for people. And the food, as I always say, there's no point in the food if you don't like the food. Zero. You're not going to eat it if you don't like the food. So we pride ourselves in being foodies first, and then seeing how we can make sure that we marry those nutrition and health goals into the meals that we provide as well. Not all of them are like bang on perfect gold star meals, but it's in general the whole thing together. It gives you everything that you hope is going to hit those taste profiles, the convenience profiles, and it's food that you would make yourself without having to.
Amazing. Yeah. And obviously nutrition plans, they can take a while to get results, but I had immediate impact from something that I had from Gourmet Fuel, which was the chickpea cookie, which was amazing, by the way.
I know. I always think that we need to come up with a better name for that. We've had that. That's one of our original snacks, and it is made from chickpeas.
So nice. I wasn't sure, like, because it said chickpea, I was like, okay, I like chickpeas, but I'm not sure what it would be like in a cookie. And I was like, I had a look at the ingredients. I was like, oh, it sounds nice because it's a bit of, I think, chocolate or hazelnut or
There's
something.
dark chocolate in there, yeah.
Yeah. And then I had it for the first time and I was like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. Like, so nice. Honestly, like 10 out of 10. Like, it was really, really good. So,
Thank you.
it's
We
funny.
do make good snacks, I have to say.
Oh,
And I
definitely.
feel like everybody needs, not everybody, like one of the first questions that I would ask somebody who's like, apart from, goals and all that kind of stuff, but one of the first kind of food related or likes or dislikes thing is like, do you like to eat snack? Do you, first of all, do you snack? Some people just don't snack. And then some people, that's all they want to do is like smaller meals and more of them during the day. But you have a preference whether you're a savory or a sweet kind of person. So if you prefer sweet treats, and if you say I need to have a sweet treat at the end of the day with my cup of tea or whatever, you're like, okay, we have an option for you. If you're like, no, I don't have a sweet tooth at all, I prefer savory, we're like, okay, we have an option for you, you know. So we try and cover all the bases with that. But I'm glad you like the chickpea cookie. I'm open to suggestions for a better name for it, honestly, because it sounds gross, but it tastes good. Maybe that's the fun part of it, you know, that it's surprising.
Yeah, no, definitely. And yeah, to be honest, now I haven't had the opportunity to try out lots of different meals. You know, they're so good because I can really relate to you. And, you know, like I've always been a foodie. I grew up with my mom and my dad, you know, helped me cook since I was like 4 or 5 and watched Rick Stein and MasterChef and everything since I was really young. So food is always like an integral part of my life and enjoying it. And all of the meals that I had are super nice. You know, they're literally like restaurant quality. Just all you have to do is pop them in the microwave and fire away. And if you think about it, like the amount of time that you can save, like it could easily take someone 2 hours a week, maybe 4 hours a week, let's say, when it comes to, you know, going to the shop, buying stuff, cooking it, preparing it. If you're giving someone back 4 hours of their week, you know,
That's exactly
that's
it. Yeah.
16 hours a month over the course of a year, 16 by 12. I don't know exactly what that is off the top of my head, but it's going to be close to, I worked out before, like you get back almost a week of your life per year
Yeah.
hours.
Or if it's like 160 hours, I'm terrible at maths, but say it's roughly that.
Yeah,
That's 4 working weeks. That's your holiday. That's your time annual leave, right?
you get a lot of,
So yeah, I mean, putting it that way, and I suppose it's down to your value system, Milan. You know, what's your value system? Like, do you value time, or do you value, you know, what do you do with your time, and what would you give to have a little bit of your time back? Like, could you use it more effectively? Could you work out more? Could you go for a walk more? Could you spend more time with your family, your friends, your kids? Could you sleep more?
yeah,
I think I'd be like sleep. Can you read a book? Can you do a bit of meditation? Can you do whatever? I don't know what people's preferred way to spend their time is. All I know is that, and it could be that, like, I myself love cooking and I love shopping and I love doing all that, but like, you can get joy out of cooking, and it can be your and it, for me as well, it is my meditation. Like, I love creating, but when you have to do it every Sunday, and there's better things you could be doing, like ironing. Who wants to iron every Sunday? But you kind of have to do it, right? You've got stuff to get ready for the week. Um, it's just one of those things that becomes a chore as opposed to a joy. And if you can outsource it in a way that, you know, A is measured, B is healthy, C has convenience, D doesn't break the bank. You know, it's like, and that is, I suppose, a very important aspect of using any service, be it ironing or a food service like Gourmet Fuel. You have to make sure it fits, not just the solves the problem of what you're looking for it to do, i.e., for us making food that's healthy and convenient for you, but also it has to fit. So not just your goals, but and how you like to eat and your flavor profiles, but it also has to fit your lifestyle. It has to work in terms of delivery. When is it delivered? How is it delivered? When will am I going to have to stay in all day to get your delivery? You know, no, you're not, is the answer. And is it going to fit my working week? Or what if my working week starts on a Thursday? Yes, well, we can help you with that as well. So these are all these things that you have to consider, but the main thing you have to consider is your budget. Well, not the main thing, one of the main things, you know, because if it's cost prohibitive, then it's not, you know, you can only do it for so long. But that said, you still can learn a lot from it. If you say, I'm only going to do it for a week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever, I feel like Gourmet Fuel has been one of the things, that the surprising thing from that I've gotten from our clients, is that it has re-educated people on portion size, on what to eat, on how to eat, on the surprising nature of, actually, because when you talk about a calorie, it's such an arbitrary notion. Like,
yeah,
what does 600 calories mean? What does 1,500 calories in a day mean? What does it look like? What does it feel like? People have gotten so out of touch with their own hunger and satiety cues that they have from their body that I feel like when you have actually put parameters on it that says this is 400 calories, this is 500 calories, this is six, that's our breakfast, lunch, dinner plan is 1500 calories, 400 calories breakfast, 500 calories lunch, 600 calories dinner. Why did we come up with that? You know, it just was for a female to lose weight, 1500 calories is a really nice place to be. We have a diet tool on our website that allows everybody to plug their own numbers in, and it's based on your age, weight, height, activity levels, and that comes out with and your goals. So whether you want to lose weight, gain weight, maintain weight, whatever. So that's your calorie amount. But we decided that we would hit those calories because it was a nice way to have 3 square meals a day that would hit those numbers. But at the same time, if somebody needed 1700 calories, well, now you add in your 200 calorie snack or your 300 calorie side, or you go up in calories in your dinner, or you go down, or you skip breakfast and you just have your lunch and your dinner, and now you have 1100 calories. So we decided very early on that we weren't going to say, this is the gourmet fuel way, this is the way, and there's no other way. No, everyone has their own way of eating. Everyone has their own appetite cues. Even in my own family, I would eat far more often than my husband, who would eat less often. And he not necessarily would eat more, but he would eat differently. And I think even as you have different activity levels in your own life, sometimes you do more sports, sometimes you do more weight training, sometimes you do more yoga, sometimes you do nothing. So it depends on what you're doing, and things change over the years. So we decided very early on that we weren't going to be this way or the highway. It's like we're giving you a modular set of meals, and that was one of the very early arguments that you can only have with a sibling, you know, where my brother's vision was that it would be this modular thing that, you know, everyone has a number. This was his whole thing. Everyone has a number. How are you going to hit that number? Building blocks. And I was like, Rob, you know, like food doesn't neatly compartmentalize itself into 400 calories. It could be 424 calories. He was like, if it's 424, it can be 400. And I just, like, my inability to do maths was like, I don't understand. But he was right. So we built a system where every ingredient that we use has its nutritional details and characteristics per gram. And we built our meals and our recipes per gram to allow us to hit 400 calories, 500 calories. So they are very neatly compartmentalized into building blocks. And he was right. Turns out it can be 400 calories and not 424. And if it can be 424, it can be 400. So this was the concept that we have behind it. And so back to what, you know, people get out of that is that they now can see and visualize and also see on a plate that they go, oh, right, okay, so that's what 500 calories of a meal looks like. But more importantly, eats like, and more importantly, feels like, and more importantly, feels like afterwards, and like an hour later, 3 hours later. Oh, I'm still full from that. Okay, what was that dish comprised of? Well, we know it was X amount of calories, but we also know that this had more protein in it versus carbs, or it had more carbs in it versus protein, or it had more greens in it, or it had more salad, or it had whatever. And then you learn what your body responds to that particular composition of food, or as we would call a macro split. And we would know now, well, you feel better, or you're at a better, you know, optimum performance if you have a higher carbohydrate intake, or you have a lower carbohydrate intake, because everyone has a different way of metabolizing food and how it feels. And so it's a really nice experiment, really, as to how people, what kind of way of eating suits you. And also it's a really good re-education of, and recalibration of your hunger and satiety cues, what works better for you longer term to give you longer out of your meals than others. And so people, even if you're doing Gourmet Fuel for a week or 2 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever, it is a very nice way to kind of put the training wheels back on a little bit, and to allow your body to kind of understand how the different quantities of food and the different types of ingredients actually work with you and your own feedback loop.
No, definitely. Yeah, there's so many good things that we could touch on there, like related to macros and being in tune with your body and really understanding, like you said, understanding what we metabolize better. Because I did a podcast with my head coach Finn recently, and we were talking about, I was saying how I eat very high carb because that makes me feel very, very good. But he said even when he's doing like marathons and ultra level stuff, he feels better on higher fat diet. And studies would tell you like, oh, more carbs is better for like ultra marathons and stuff, but he feels better on higher fats. So
Well,
so
this is the
important.
thing, and sports nutrition is fascinating to me, and I would never claim to be an expert in sports nutrition at all. I have had some experience with it when we started Gourmet Fuel back in 2014. When we started producing meals, we were a year in R&D, and we started producing meals January 2015. So we're 10 years this year, which is very exciting.
That's
Yeah, I mean, it's like huge. And but one of our first collaborations and first big pieces of work, and I totally got my science nerd hat on. It was amazing. We were working with the Institute of Sport and Sport Ireland for the preparation of various athletes for Rio in 2016. So I was piggybacking on like Sharon Madigan and all these amazing sports nutritionists, dietitians. Orla Walsh, she was working with the Athletics Ireland at the time, and Sharon Madigan, who's the head nutritionist for all of the Sport Ireland campus. And I was just like, oh my God, teach me, let me know what I'm doing. But we were working with Swim Ireland at the time, particularly, and we were working with various athletes in various disciplines, and we had Ollie Dingley, who is the diving champion, and we had some of the breaststrokes, and but we also had one of I've forgotten his name now, but the open water swimmer. So he was doing like 2K swims in open water, which could take, or maybe longer, maybe it was a longer swim, I can't remember. It was taking hours basically, and
yeah.
his preferred way of eating was high fat, and it kind of went against what he was being advised by, like that higher carb. But when you look at what high fat diets can do, and when you do follow the protocol correctly and your body switches gear into using fat as the main source of fuel, then it is a very effective fuel source, because it has much longer, you have much more reserves of body fat, so you can fuel longer. And particularly as an athlete in an environment where you're swimming, like to try and get dextrose, tablets or like gels every half hour is kind of, again, the logistics of it. You've got to think of the lifestyle. You've got to think of how eating and refueling in this example, actually the complications of it are, like, I've had to bring it back to normal life. I've had clients who are doctors and surgeons, lawyers, busy moms, hairdressers. I remember, and I know as a hairstylist, you never take a lunch break. You're like literally eating between clients. So I had a hairstylist who needed to get X amount of protein in, and I was like, I can't give you 3 meals a day. I have to give you 5 small meals a day, so you can eat 300 calories here and 300 calories there and 300 calories there. And he was like, absolutely, that's exactly it. Same with this swimmer. He can't have his training coach giving him, well, he can if he wants, but it's very difficult for him to stop a swim and like take it. So it was much more efficient for him as a performer to have his own reserves of fuel in his body that he's tapping into, which is your body fat. And so ultramarathoners and a long, very like endurance, long endurance sports, they tend to actually be able to tap into that fuel being their fat, their own body fat sources. It's a
Mhm.
much more logistically efficient way of fueling,
Yeah.
which is fascinating, right? But like, not everybody can follow that diet. Like I would myself would I would not be able to eat a high fat diet; just wouldn't work for me. So like there's so again, it's trial and error and knowing what works for you and how your body will assimilate it, and how you feel on it afterwards, and if it's a much more beneficial way of eating for you based on your goals and what you need and your targets and what you need it to do, you know.
Yeah, no, for sure. And something I want to know, what inspired you to initially, go down the route of nutrition and to become a registered nutritionist?
Well, I mean, I suppose, like academically, I was always um, more comfortable in the science sphere than any other part of my schooling. It was always the area that I gravitated to. I did a I went from my school leaving cert into UCD, and I studied my science degree, general science degree. Ended up specializing in chemistry and biochemistry, both of which I was really not great at. um, well, I shall say I struggled. I found them hard, but any of the in my biochemistry lectures, and certainly even in biology when we would do anatomy and physiology, it was just always an area that I never struggled with. I loved the body, and I loved learning about the systems and how we use our various, from hormones through our musculoskeletal system. It was just all like, I just lapped it up. I lapped it up. I loved it. Um, Coupled with the fact that I just love food, and had done since my earliest memories of being me was always related to food. Um, and my mom was a great cook. My dad was the biggest foodie of all. And so we had food for us was very much a joy and a celebratory thing. But every day it was like, what's for dinner? What's for dinner? What's for dinner? Oh yeah, great. Oh, my favorite. Oh, la 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 la. My mom was someone who didn't eat enjoy eating food, but she loved making food. Weirdly, she like, insofar as she did enjoy eating, she did like eating food, but she wouldn't think about food. She didn't have what they call now food noise, which I have. And but I think you should turn your thing that you think about the most into, if you could make it your job, that's a win-win, isn't it? But I then had, in my late teens, early 20s, when I was in university, I actually went to university quite young. And when I was in university, I ended up um, not having a great relationship with food. And I was all about like, oh, trying to not eat that much, and just like eating really low calorie, eating cereal all day and that kind of thing. And I went through a phase of like being really miserable, very poorly looking, really unhealthy looking, and mostly my mood was like, I was just never happy, never smiled. It was like I was a different person. And I kind of came out of the other end of that, having to wanting to realizing that I still like to eat, but I didn't want to gain any weight, or I was in a really weird, early, a typical female in the 90s, where you're like, oh, everyone has their secret to not gaining weight or to losing weight or whatever. And I was on the quest for one of these like fat magnets that you hear people talk about, or like, all these kind of like magic potions that all you have to do is take this chromium tablet and, whatever. And I was on the quest to find the latest thing, which doesn't exist, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, spoiler alert, I'll save you all the time. I had been, I used to like think about it. I was like electrocuted. I was wrapped up and I was heated up. I've been like, I've literally done everything to try and, take a shortcut. And I was on looking for the magic potion. And I was in a health food store, and I found a book called The Vitamin Bible by Earl Mundell, and I still remember it today. And I picked it up, and it was all about like the micronutrients that we need for our body to thrive, not just exist and survive, but to thrive. And it set off these like, light bulbs. And I was like, I remember this in college, and this is what I did in university. I was not working as a scientist straight out of college. I was went in a different career path. And so for a few years, and I was like, this is now, oh yeah. And then all these light bulbs started going off, and I was like, I just loved this. I loved learning about the impact that what you eat and on your body, and how you feel after it, and the benefits that you get. And I was eating cornflakes all day thinking I could lift, heavy weights and go to the gym and go for a run. And it turns out like I couldn't, because I wasn't fueling my body correctly. And so it was really at my own kind of journey and discovery with my own food and my own nutrition that after a year or two of kind of experimenting with my own diet, I went, I think I'd like to turn this into a career. I think I'd like to stop other girls from going down the route that I went to. And that was really my objective, was to, if someone had come to my school at 15-year-old Emma and said, girls and guys, this is the reality, and spoke candidly about the meals, the nutrients that we need to eat, what damage you can do when you go on one of these like crazy, like low calorie weight loss kind of things, or like the mindset that you're in for that. Talk about self-esteem and body image, that side of things. I was like, if I can stop one person from doing the stupidity that I engaged in, I would be really happy with that. So I went back to college, studied nutrition, loved every single second of it. And my first thing to do was to go to schools. And I went back to the school I used to go to, and some various local schools to me, and spoke to transition year students about just like that. And at the time, I wasn't that much older than them. But so I was like, this kind of young, cool, in my early 20s, going into these schools, talking to kids that were like 7 years younger than me, I guess. And if I now going into school, I still think I'm only 7 years older, but I'm so not. And they're kind of like, who are you, you old lady, coming in talking about that. But that's how it started. I went and did schools, and then I developed plans for young children, and this is in the 90s, and then did a different career path, but I always came back to my health and nutrition. And then I became a registered nutritionist through the AFN and Association for Nutrition, which is, nutritionists and dietitians are different. We all talk about how important food is, and how important diet can be on health, but dietitians are incredibly they're clinical, and it's very important that people know the difference between what a dietitian does and what a nutritionist can do. And you have to be very aware of your scope of practice. You have to be very aware of not going outside of those boundaries, and to work within the framework that you have of knowledge and obviously expertise. And as a registered nutritionist, your code of ethics is very clear, and you have to subscribe to that, and you need to know where your the lines are firmly drawn within what you can do with your clients and whatnot. And you need to obviously always know when to refer to a dietitian or to a GP. And that's always been my approach. I've never wanted to work in a clinical setting, so that's why a food nutrition, as I'm registered as a food nutritionist, has always been my preferred industry, shall we say, because I love helping people disseminate the scientific information and literature, but give it in a very simple to easy understandable way, to work with clients' likes and dislikes, what their goals are. But if I suspect somebody needs more clinical interventions, then it's straight to a dietitian, straight to their GP, and then I will work in tandem with their dietitian, and we can come up with a good solution. But it's very important to know the difference between choosing to be a nutritionist and choosing to be and going the dietetics route as well. It's a very
Yeah,
important distinction.
it's really interesting. Yeah, I was gonna ask like if you were to try to sum it up simply in like one or two sentences, what do you feel like the core difference is between a dietitian and a nutritionist? Because I think it's good for a lot of people to know, because most people would think, oh, nutritionist, dietitian, that's the same thing, right? But
Yeah.
it's not the case.
No, 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 no. It's not. Well, the main thing is dietitians are clinical,
Yeah.
and they're registered as Coru in the Irish system anyway. And a nutritionist can't be registered with Coru, so they're not clinical. And I suppose there are and nutritionist isn't a protected term, so that's why, or profession really. Anyone can call themselves a nutritionist. Uh,
Mm.
so that's why it's very important that when you are science, you have a science degree, from a university, a recognized science degree. And it, like back in my day, there was no undergraduate degree for human nutrition. There is now. There are many universities that you can do your undergraduate degree in, and it's great. I have in Gourmet Fuel, we've had many nutritionist human nutrition graduates come through my team, who then go back to college and do a master's in dietetics because they really want to do their dietetics degree and get their dietetics qualification so that they can work in hospitals. So you nutritionists won't work in a hospital, won't work with children, or like someone who might need enteral nutrition, or anything like that. And so it's much more widely available now, and much more direct route from leaving cert to becoming a graduate nutritionist, and then on to dietetics, because the dietetics courses are quite in high demand. And then as the Association for Nutrition, which is in the UK, but it covers the UK and Ireland as well, they have very strict high bar criteria that you need to meet so that you're evidence based, so that you follow their code of conduct and their code of ethics, and that your scope of practice, and that when you can help someone and when you have to say, out of my area, and it's not where I can go with you on this one, but I think you should now go to see your dietitian or go
Yeah.
to your GP and get your bloods done. That's not my area. I can suspect someone might, with the symptoms that somebody is telling me of something, but I can't diagnose it, and I would never. So that's the distinction.
Yeah.
But then when the dietitian does, and the dietitian says, Emma, here we go, I have Elan here, and I'd like him to follow this, and this, because we want to hit his cholesterol here, or we want to hit his vitamin K there, and we need to do this, that, and the other. I'm like, okay, great, because with our the software that we've built in Gourmet Fuel, we have all of the macronutrition, but all the micronutrition as well. So we know exactly, because we're measuring every gram of food and every ingredient that goes into a dish, and it's the finished weight. I think people need to understand that things change with the cooking process. So grains and like rice and oats and spaghetti, things like that, will increase in volume, whereas chicken and fish will decrease in volume and decrease in and so the finished weight is what we're actually consuming. We're not consuming the raw state of an ingredient. And therefore we know the micronutrients as well. So we know if someone wants to have a low phosphate diet, for instance, or if they need high calcium, or if they need low sodium, or they need no vitamin K because they're on blood thinners, whatever it is, we're able to give that information back to the dietitian, and then they can say yes, this, and this. And it's we're all working on the same team, but you just need to know that that's where the line is drawn there, and someone else takes the baton at that point.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's something I feel really strongly about as well, because anytime I have a consultation with someone who I might potentially work with, literally the first thing that I say is like, look, if I feel like we can't help or we're not the right fit, I'm always happy to try and refer you to someone else, because I think it's so wrong if
Fair. Yeah, that's very
that
fair.
if someone is speaking with somebody and like because a good few people have come to me before and they say like, oh yeah, I want to get fitter, I want to get stronger, want to have better longevity, stuff like that. But then we have a quick consultation and it comes up that they've actually been through a lot of very traumatic stuff in the last few years. Um, and it's obvious that they'd probably, be better off investing their money with, let's say, a counselor or a therapist
Yeah,
if they're open to that, of course. Um,
yeah.
it's so much better to refer somebody than be like, oh yeah, I can solve all your problems when actually you can't. So it's just more ethical.
Well, I think you're coming from it. You're coming to it from a very authentic place. I say that because I know that you want the best results for the person in front of you.
Yeah.
And if you give that person like from what you consider to be the best advice for them, and it turns out that it may not be the one that you need X amount of clients on your roster for your own business, but you've just deferred one, or you feel like you may have said no to somebody, but it's no, not now, it's not no, never.
Yeah, yeah.
And that person will remember, well, Elan was genuinely invested and wants me to get the best out of my place, so when I am ready to train, I'm going to train with him. And it's a really smart, actually, like, but it's not coming from a commercial perspective. I think it's coming from a human perspective, where you actually want the best out of this. And
Yeah.
also, you don't want somebody, and I will say this as well to my clients, this is when we met first, Elon. I was so surprised at how aligned our values are and our approaches are. Like, I would say to my clients, how ready are you for this? Like, are you, it's not going to be easy. It's going to get tough. There are moments where you're going to be like, geez, let me have the popcorn, or let me have, not that you got the popcorn, but insert whatever thing that you think you have to give up. We all can do with a little bit of what you fancy. But if somebody isn't in the right place, frame of mind, be it your mental approach, your physical approach, financially, whatever the case may be, you're better off having them come to you when all of those ducks are in a row, because they'll get the best results out of you and your service then,
Yeah.
as opposed to going, try that, didn't work,
Yeah.
and then you're like, everyone's lost. So if somebody and it takes a very kind of experienced person, I think, to see that in somebody, and not, and be able to play the long game, really, is what you're doing for them. For you, it's a win-win, because when they do come back to you then, and they have gotten whatever worked out, then they're ready, and they'll get better results, they'll work much, and they'll never forget that you actually were like, I think maybe you need to go and speak to ... first.
For sure. Yeah, I think it's definitely the best way to go, just having someone's genuine, what is best for them at heart. That's I think.
And knowing where they're at, insofar as, like, I remember in the early days having a client come to us, and she had a trainer, and her diet was god awful. Like,
Oh,
it
really?
was sausage. She didn't eat until like 1 o'clock in the day or something like that, and then And then it was like straight to the local garage and getting a couple of those sausage rolls from from the heated cabinet and all this kind of stuff. And like, then, I mean, like ultra processed foods all the time. And he her trainer was like, yeah, I'm gonna like get her doing this, that, and the other, and she's gonna be working out like 5 days a week with me, and I want her on carb cycling, and I want her on this macro split, and da 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 da. And I was like trying to work out, I was like, okay, this macro split is like 50% this day, 20% that day, 80% this day. Okay, all right, okay. And I'm like putting all this work in. And I'm like, I personally, I think we should just get her eating 3 meals a day. It doesn't matter what the macro split is. Let's just get her eating regularly, not sausage rolls all day, and not, whatever this ultra processed cans of soda and da 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 da. I'm like, let's just get her eating real food consistently for a few weeks, a month, or whatever. Then we can start the next process of like the carb cycling and all this like fancy things that you want to do. And he was like, couldn't understand the approach. I was like, dude, she's coming from eating sausage rolls and now you want her eating like carbs, like it's too much. It's too the other way. Let's just get the needle pointing in that direction first, from empty right up to, you know what I mean?
Definitely. Simple is best.
Sometimes, like you're against and people want the fast solution. By nature, we just want the quick solution. And I think that I was only speaking to somebody about this the other day. He's like, oh, you're a nutritionist, I really need some help. It's just somebody I met, at a sporting thing. And he was like, I need some help with my diet. La, la. It's like, it's not as difficult as you think, right? It's not as complicated as you think. It is difficult because of the things we spoke about at the beginning, with time and prep and knowing what to eat, knowing how much to eat, da, da, da. But like fundamentally, I think over the years that I've been in this space anyway, and certainly even before I was professionally in this space, I was in the space because I was the person that I was being spoken to, that I think there have been so many different ways of approaching losing weight or weight loss or healthy eating that have become, that by their nature they are very scientific sounding and complicated. And so the more complicated or the more scientific, the more well, that must work because like there's a lot of evidence behind a lot of science. It all boils down to the same thing: just eating what your body needs in terms of protein, carbohydrate, fats, vegetables, and fruits, drinking enough water, getting enough sleep, getting enough exercise. Boom. It's really simple in that way. It's not easy to do it consistently. Obviously, that's why people need a little bit of assistance and guidance with that. And I think also the ultra processed foods have come along and they've made eating very easy, quite tasty, and quite addictive, right? So it's your kind of like, ooh, I just like a bag of whatever, and I'll just eat those, instead of actually making a sandwich with 2 slices of brown bread and some lettuce and tomato and a bit of chicken, you know. That's
Yeah.
work. Whereas a bag of, big bag of share bag or whatever is much easier.
Yeah.
So it's boiling it down and distilling it down to its simplest form. Like every new Fandango diet protocol will say, okay, no alcohol, no crisps, no sugar, no salts, no salt, no crisps, no sugar, no donuts, no cakes, da, 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 da. Do this, do that, go for your 30-minute walk a day, drink more water, boom. That's
Yeah.
literally what they all say.
I know. There's literally there's no magic in really any approach on a fundamental level, because they're all, like you said, literally have some accountability to be more on track with your sleep, with your food, with your movement, managing your stress, and gradually then over time you'll get in much better shape. So like you said, I think really important distinction. It's simple but not easy. That's
Not
why
easy.
accountability is super important. But you said something as well I thought it'd be good to bring up, because a lot of people probably don't realize how much processed food, like how much investment has gone in by different companies to process food, because a lot of food scientists will literally specialize in finding out something like, okay, what ingredient can we put in food that's going to maximize somebody's dopamine response or serotonin response,
Mm.
or whatever neurotransmitter response, to make them come back to want this food. So a lot of people, I think, don't realize just how much investment
The
goes
Mark
into making,
Zuckerberg of foods.
yeah, to making foods, like certain foods, like addictive in ways so that your dopamine gets spiked and different things, like,
Amazing.
especially in the US. I think we're quite lucky in Ireland a lot because there's different
We
laws
are.
you
We
know.
are. We're much luckier with our food producers, our local food producers, our the quality that our growers have, and also the restrictions that we have from an EU perspective. But the self, just the natural producers that we have here, just their natural way of producing, like Irish produce worldwide would be, this whole grass fed thing is like, what other way is there to feed?
Yeah,
Yeah. Um, so we're very lucky with the quality of the food that we produce here. And also like the restrictions that we have on those ultra processing, because even if you're eating meat that comes from a cow that has by its nature had an ultra processed diet, that diminishes the nutrition and the nutrient quality of the meat that they produce. So there's you got to look at the farm to fork kind of thing.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I mean, the food science is fascinating. And like when you think about food science, I always think about really from a food safety perspective, because that's the area that I would come from: food safety, food hygiene. But also, I mean, as I said, when I was doing my undergraduate degree, it was in chemistry, and I was like, this is like baking, right? Because it's a bit of that, a bit of this, and but very measured, and then you boil it in this solution for half an hour at that temperature, and you yield this. It's like baking, it's like food. So food, but the air, like, obviously organic chemistry is highly related to the foods that we eat: carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, how they all react with one another, and the biochemistry of that in your body. But from a food chemistry perspective, you're thinking of things like emulsification and hydrogenation and all these techniques that we would have done 50 years ago to preserve life, the shelf life of food, to preserve the stability of food, to give to change the chemical structure of food, like margarine from a liquid oil at room temperature being like a sunflower oil or whatever, just simply adding hydrogen molecules to hydrogenate it turns its chemical structure around to make it solid at room temperature, hence margarine and these plant-based solid spreads.
yeah,
So it started with manipulating the chemical structure of food to give it a more wide usability in food the food industry. But I think then it has gone to that kind of, okay, from a shelf life perspective, but also, well, hang on, we do want things to taste good, because if they taste good, people will buy more of it. So from a commercial perspective, the flavor profiles came in, but not just that, but it was the mouthfeel, the crunch factor, the dissolvability factor, all of these other things, which then has now parlayed into even further into how things make us feel from a dopamine and serotonin perspective, because that wasn't even a consideration 50 years ago. It was just like, how do I make my product last longer on a shelf, that it doesn't go off without refrigeration, so that it can stay on a shelf at ambient temperature, like a cornflake or a Rice Krispie or a biscuit or whatever, that doesn't go off and doesn't have to be refrigerated. Speaking of our chickpea cookie, back to the thing, you need to refrigerate our snacks. They go off in the cupboard.
yes.
They go moldy, but that's a good sign. We don't have any hydrogenation going on downstairs in our kitchens. But it's fascinating that there's so much investment in food science to kind of understand what drives people to choose one food over another. And just like I was saying glibly, like the the likes, the dopamine factor you get from social media, which, you know, can be quite insidious, the whole sort of concept behind it. Is
Yeah.
that now creeping into our food chain as well and our food suppliers? Like, do we really need to start, you know, saying for only 16s only or whatever, you know, on these things? So yeah, I mean, I think it's something to be really, really aware of and something to be really, really mindful of as well. But like if you just boil it back down or you bring it back down to basics, like your granny knew what she was talking about when she said eat your greens. It's really like boring, but good.
Yeah, definitely.
Boring, but solid.
On a practical level, to most people, I just say, if you're buying something, have a quick look at the label, and if it has trans fats in it, ideally don't buy it. Like that's something you want to be stay well away from. There's lots of good fats, healthy fats, but trans fats, really bad idea. So generally stay away from them.
Yeah.
On a personal level, I prefer not to have palm oil in any product. So I used to love Nutella, and then as I started to become more conscious about things, I find out that palm oil is a key ingredient in Nutella. And now I'm like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just not eating Nutella anymore. And there's lots of things since then over the last few years. I'd have a quick look at the label and it'd say palm oil, and then I'd be like, oh, well, I'm just not going to buy that. I'll have to find some alternative, So there's a lot of, I suppose, as you become a bit more conscious about what you're eating, then ethically you'll be like, oh yeah, I'm probably going to avoid that product or this brand or whatever. So
And also, I think, you know, food manufacturers are commercial entities and you have control of what you spend your euros on. And if you choose to not buy a certain food because of an ingredient that you don't agree with, from whatever perspective, from the health perspective, the socially aware perspective, um, provenance perspective, whatever your whole set of values are, you know, you dictate where your euros go, and food manufacturers will listen if the footfall is dropping. And that's just the way it is.
no, absolutely. I know we could speak for hours, so I'm gonna ask you one more quick question, and we can finish there. So, knowing what you know now, if you could go back in time, let's say to before you set up Gourmet Fuel, and you could
Mm-hmm.
give younger Emma advice, what advice what advice would you give her?
From a food perspective or from a life perspective?
I think just a general perspective, maybe it could be something related to personal stuff, business, relationships, food, whatever way you want to go at it.
I wish I had done more sport and uh, weight training in my earlier life. I play a lot of sport now as an old lady, and I train as an old lady now. I wish I had been more consistent with that. And I wish like, I see the girls who are 15, 16, 17 play hockey with me now, and they're so fit and strong and healthy and like quick. And I'm like, keep it up, keep it up. Because if you have that ground level of and base level of fitness and muscle mass in your teens and into your early 20s, it doesn't get better than that. And it just will keep you in good stead. In when I started really getting into fitness in my late 20s, early 30s, even then it was more aesthetic fitness. It wasn't really fitness. And in my 40s, that's when I really valued being able to run faster, recover quicker, because I was not just going to the gym or running because of aesthetics and trying to keep a certain weight. I was actually wanting to play my sport more effectively, you know, and because my sport actually was my stress relief. I call it my Prozac, you know, because it was the hour and a half that I would be playing hockey or whatever or training, where I was like not thinking about anything at all, no family, kid, work, nothing except how unfit I was, how bad I was, and how much I wanted to improve. And if I could go back to early 15, 16, 18, 20-year-old Emma, it would be find a sport, find a team sport, and just get involved and involved in something that's bigger than you and outside of you, because it's such a good thing for you to, from a physical wellness perspective, from a mental wellness perspective, from a accountability perspective. Because if you say you're available to play a match on Saturday and go to training on a Tuesday, you better turn up. You better be there. It's bigger than you. It's outside of you. So if I could go back and give myself any advice, it would have been to not give up hockey when I was 15 or 16, because you're leaving cert. You'll do better in school if you play hockey or play a sport, or you go to the gym or go for a walk or do something. Like, having that more rounded perspective of your application to how you go about your life will keep you much more balanced, less, like, if you think of the wheel of your life, much more like even and smooth flowing, as opposed to one spoke taking more energy than the other, or more focus than the other. And there are periods of time where obviously you have to study, like for your leaving or your finals in college, or you've got a big project at work and all of that stuff. But as long as there's other things in your life to support it, your friends, your social life, your rest, you're taking some exercise, maybe some spirituality, maybe some meditation, maybe so whatever that kind of thing is for you, just try and think of it as a wheel that's balanced. And I think that's going to be the keep you in good stead as you get into your gray hairs, and wish that you could run that little bit faster. Or you can still run fast, but it doesn't take you quite the same time to recover from it. So
Yeah.
that's one of the pieces that, if I could go back, it would be that. Oh, and like, I always say it's got to be worth the calories. If it's not worth the calories.
Nice, very good. Yeah, no, it's super important, and all of the evidence will back that up. The stronger, fitter you are from a younger age, the higher
Mm,
likelihood of better longevity, quality of life, obviously just
mm.
better health markers, feeling good, most importantly, so that's all, really good. And
Oh, and listen to your mother or your father, whoever, or your teacher, whoever the adults that you respect in your life is. I would say, been there, done that, got the t-shirt. I have a 17-year-old, doesn't listen to me. I know he does a little bit.
yeah, I won't comment on that because I'm probably not going to be the A1 student for following along with people's advice for sure from when I was younger.
No, but you got to forge your own path as well. But
Yeah.
like, it is like, and that goes for, I've heard this analogy given: if you want to be a good tennis player, are you going to talk to someone who's a good rugby player? No, talk to someone who's a good tennis player. So depending on what area you want to get into, find your guru, find the person who inspires you or you look up to, and do try and see what they did.
Absolutely. No, that's amazing. And yeah, I think it'd be good to finish there. I'm sure we could have another chat in future and go down a different route. But just before we finish up, if obviously I'll pop the links down below for Gourmet Fuel for the website, for your social media and stuff as well, where people can connect with you. But for anyone that's listening or watching, where would you like to send them to, or where ideally can they check you out?
I think a great place to go is just the homepage, gourmetfuel.com. It's will bring you on to the journey that you would like to go down, whether it's down to looking at a perfect meal plan for you, or just looking through the shop and the individual meals that we offer. There's over 200 meals there. Honestly, there should be something for most people. And if there isn't, let us know, because we're always developing. And we and you can have a look at to see, whether we deliver all over Ireland, 32 counties, so there shouldn't be an issue there. But it depends on days and your location for that. So all the delivery information is there, all the FAQs are there. We do a really good thing with Irish Life Health. If you're a member of Irish Life Health and you're having a baby, and you have a particular health insurance, you can get a hamper of our meals for free, which is cool. There's loads of little things in there. There's referral programs, loyalty programs, all that kind of stuff, and there's blogs. So you can get to see. There's loads of places to go from gourmetfuel.com, just the homepage, and there's videos there, and you can kind of see behind the scenes and what we do and how we do it. The people behind us. We're very proud to be guaranteed Irish. We have our premises in South County Dublin and Sandyford. We everything's all under one roof. Our offices, our production facilities, and we love what we do. We're just mad about food and good quality food, and we have a quality assurance as well that if you don't like what you get or if something is not right, we'll make it right.
Amazing. Yeah. And I really like all the products, and it shows the work that you put into it because they're all super nice. And my girlfriend's a vegetarian and we ordered a mixture of things, some vegan, some
Right.
vegetarian. I eat meat as well. So we ordered literally a bit of everything and it was all amazing. And I think it's there's literally, like you said, something for everyone, regardless of how you eat. So, it's really amazing service. So yeah, perfect. We'll leave it there for today. And if
Thank
anyone has any
you.
questions for myself or for Emma, just drop it down below in the comments, or you can email me, elan@coachelan.com. And hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll chat soon.
Thank you.